the commitment in South Africa to, this year is my 40th year on stage. And the commitment that you have to your art, to have been on stage for 40 years in South Africa is huge, because there is so little work that all of us basically have to do other stuff to also stay alive, to keep the pot on the stove. And that kind of commitment, I do not think the public understand.
Oh, Elzabé, it's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
so likewise, both ways.
Yeah, you've done so much in South Africa in the theater world, and you're a singer and an actress.
I'm an actress first, then I'm a singer. I am. There's for me a huge distinction because I am not a musician. My son is a musician. Both my sons are musicians. They understand music. They hear music like a musician should. I don't always understand music, and I don't hear music the way a musician hears it. I hear the interpretation. So I sing the word. I don't sing the note. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Totally.
So I'm an actress first, and then I'm a singer.
Okay.
So yeah.
And
not a musician.
Oh, okay. But how did this journey for you start as a child? So you always had an interest in acting?
I think the day that I was born, when the doctor held me up in the air and hit me on the bum, I didn't say, "Koe," like other children. I said, "Give me a stage, I want to perform." So
okay.
It is just always been there. It's there was just never any doubt in my mind. I didn't know there was a word for it. I didn't know it was called an actress, because I grew up in rural South Africa, in small towns, and we only got television when I was in high school. So as a child, I didn't even know that there was a word for it. I heard the word actress for the first time when I was about 10, 11 years old.
Really?
And then it clicked, and okay, yes, that's the one.
Yeah. So were you the one?
There was never any doubt in my mind. It was the only thing I wanted to do, and it was the only thing I was ever going to do.
So were you the one in the school that were doing the acting parts always, and making little concerts and things? Was it like that for you as a child?
A little bit, yes. I obviously I was in all the school plays and in the operettas, and so I did a lot less sport and a lot more culture at school. It was, but so yes, I was always performing, but I grew up with a father whose personality was larger than life, and his entire life was a performance. He was a teacher, but his life was a performance. That was just how he was. So that was the example that I saw. So I was a little bit like that. I think I was very irritating because I was very loud and always in the front, and yeah. But I think I irritated a lot of people a lot of the time.
But that's I mean, I sometimes think it's them, not you. It's like, if they are annoyed with it, it's your personality. It's something great that you have, that quality.
Well, yeah, it's the only one I have, and I don't really know how to change it. I can change it for small little periods of time, but not for long ones.
Well, it's like when they say we're not for everybody, So some things are just not for everybody. So
Yep.
yeah. But now then, did you go and study? Was this the thing you decided this is what I'm going to study, or how
Yes.
does it work?
Yes, I did a national diploma in acting at the Pretoria, it was then called the Pretoria Technikon. I didn't want to go to university, specifically for the reason that I didn't want to be able to fall back on something like teaching. So I didn't want a degree. I really didn't want a degree, because then that would always be the way out. Because I'm fairly sure I've seen you've spoken to a lot of South Africans that work is scarce. It has always been, and it always will be. There are a few people in South Africa that can make a good living out of entertainment, but by far the majority of people, really, it's tough. It's seriously tough. I never had teaching to be able to fall back onto, but it was always waitressing. And even now, at the age of 61, you know, I'm still waitressing, except it's in my own place. But that was always my fallback was waitressing. Except I've now also lost that through COVID. But yeah, I never wanted to do anything else. That was all I wanted to do.
But isn't it also this idea, because I've been speaking to artists over the lockdown period as well, and that we're talking about this art and the value of art. And what you're saying now is exactly this thing where people have something to fall back on. So in actual fact, many musicians, even in Europe, say to me that people ask them, but what is your real job? You know, if they say they're a musician. And what you're saying now is exactly that thing where, you know, where you say in South Africa, it's something like, oh, but if you study acting, you have to get something else to fall back on. Why is it that way? Why is acting not seen as a career that, and art seen as careers that stand on their own feet?
I don't think that is the problem. I do think that being an actress or acting is accepted, but it should always be the second one. It can never be the primary one. So there is, yes, you can be an actress, but always in the second place. There has to be a real job. And then you are allowed to have the job as an actress. But I also think it's a huge misconception. You know, I'm sure you've heard this before, that you'll be at a party and somebody will come to you and you'll start a conversation and say, oh, you know, my cousin is so funny. He should have been on stage. And I think, guys, do you realize how much work it is? Do you realize how hard it is to be on a stage? People think it's an easy thing because they can stand around the fire at a braai place and they tell a few jokes and people think they're funny. They think they are performers.
Yeah.
They do not understand what it takes to be on a stage with 1,000 people in front of you. They don't get that.
Yeah.
And that there is no room for make a mistake. You cannot make a mistake. That's it.
Yeah.
You can't pick up and rectify that mistake. If you made it on stage, it was made. That's it. So there is, I think, amongst normal people or the publicum, there is a misconception of how much it takes to be on a stage and earn your living from that. A misconception of it's so easy to do it. They do not understand the level of concentration it takes to keep 1,000 people in the palm of your hand. So That was my very long answer to that question.
No, but it's totally true. And this is why I'm also doing these interviews, because I think it's this, the public sees that part on the stage, but they also don't realize the commitment behind it, you know, and the years of training and the years of effort that goes into before you even reach that point. You know, if I just think of the conductors that I spoke to here, the young conductors at the university, you know, 7 years, they study 7 years, but before the 7 years already they've done other musical instruments and so on, and nobody sees that. You know, they see the person with the baton in front of the orchestra, and that's all. And this is exactly what you're saying now. Now somebody thinks he's funny, and he thinks this can make him an artist on the stage. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there.
The commitment in South Africa to, you know, this year is my 40th year on stage, and the commitment that you have to your art, to have been on stage for 40 years in South Africa is huge, because there is so little work that all of us basically have to do other stuff to also stay alive, to keep the pot on the stove. And that kind of commitment, I do not think the public understand. How much you give of yourself to, after 40 years, still to be able to do it. When you know, when you know, the income is so little. And, you know, and the last 2 years, this last 2 years is we are finally now, the last 2 weeks, we're allowed to perform to full theatres again in South Africa.
Really? Mm.
Yeah. Only in the last 2 weeks. So it was, you know, I have 4 ways that I earned my income. I had a guest house. I had a private dining room, so I cook. That's one of my other passions as well. I sing and I act. And I lost all 4 in COVID. Gone overnight. So I eventually lost my guest house. I lost my dining room. I now live in my brother's house. But still, I'm not going to get an office job.
Yeah.
I'm still going to try everything that I possibly can in order for me to be able to be on stage. I have the most fantastic woman that's been working with me for the last 20 years, Agnes Mabaso. And she was my chef in the private dining room. And we are still, can you hear this dog snoring?
No, I can't.
Okay. My Labrador is lying over here, and she is snoring away.
My dog is also,
Yeah. So Agnes is right at this moment. Agnes is in the kitchen. She's busy baking cookies and rusks.
Really?
That's how we are keeping ourselves alive at the moment, by selling cookies and rusks. And on Monday to Thursday, we cook a vegetarian meal and a meat meal, and we deliver it.
Wow.
Between 5 and 6, and that is how we are keeping alive at the moment.
But you see, I this is what I find so fascinating. You know, I've photographed 500 artists in their windows here in Vienna over the lockdown period. And I spoke to all of them, sometimes just through the window, but sometimes I could speak to them in person. And this is why this is so important, I think, that the world and that society understands art and you as artists. It's not just about the stage, it's about how you face things and how you live your lives. You know, like you saying now, you lost everything, yet you are still making plans, having ideas, being creative, and making a living. And this I find also with all the musicians that I've spoken to, they just make a plan. They just have this ability to overcome obstacles, to persevere. And I wonder if this I believe this comes with the fact that you are artists, that you have, you've gone through all that, and this is a type of a personality trait that you have.
Yes. I think it's got a lot to do with the creative process, because we are creative in finding other ways of making a living.
Yeah.
And finding ways that doesn't take us away from that which we really want to do. That was the same with when I had the guest house and the dining room. In that dining room, I built for the main purpose so that I had a place where I could perform.
Oh, okay.
Because, in the 80s and in the early 90s in South Africa, Cabaret was having an absolute field day. It was so sought after that every third restaurant turned itself into a theater by putting a few beer crates in, and that was your stage, and you got dressed in the kitchen. I think that's where my love for cooking started, because I changed in so many kitchens. So when all the changes in South Africa happened, and I'm fairly sure, being in Europe, you understand that maybe more than South Africans would understand it, that when a country goes through turmoil, that is when Cabaret really has its flowering, its blooming, its because that is what the people need at that stage. But as the change happened, the tastes, and suddenly you don't have to hear somebody saying these things on stage anymore. It changes. So, and that is really what happened in South Africa. After from the 2000s, it became more and more difficult as a single performer to find venues to perform in. Because, I spoke about performing to 1,000 people, but that is not what I usually perform to. Yeah, I've performed to 1,000 people before, but that was in Germany mostly, but also in South Africa. But that is not that's not where my expertise lies. My expertise lies in what is known in Europe as Kleinkunst, small art. And even though Cabaret is supposed to be able to fit into any place, traditionally, it is understood that it is in a small, intimate space, because that is where it works best. That's it. So we lost a lot of the small theaters. We lost all those theater restaurants. They just didn't exist anymore. And for Afrikaners, there was a change in all the festivals that started. 1995, I think it was 95, it was 1994 or 1995, the KAKNK, which is the Klein Karoo Kunstefees Arts Festival, was started. And that was sort of a lifeline for so many of us who, through this thing, that all the changes that happened in South Africa, and the fact that the small restaurants, or rather the theater restaurants, disappeared. The small theaters disappeared because it was musicals. People wanted bigger and better, and Kunst really suffered. And there was a small handful of people that just carried on with it and carried on with it. And these festivals were really our lifeline. It almost became a thing of living from one festival to the next festival. And you knew that if you had a new work, the fact that the festivals were most probably accept your new work. And then there are 5 festivals that you can perform at through the year. And in between, you can do a few other things. So that became a lifeline. And that's also what we lost in COVID. All the festivals closed down. I was busy rehearsing a new show that I commissioned. I asked somebody to write the show for me, and I was busy rehearsing it when it was announced that the Klein Karoo Kunstefees was going to be cancelled in 2020 with COVID. So I immediately stopped rehearsals, and that show was put on ice for 2 years. It was lying there. It was ready to be performed. And more, apart from the fact that it was work that was lost and all of that, I also felt at that stage it was an enormous lost opportunity, because most probably you know that South Africa is the top country in the world. We are number 1 in the world for femicide, the killing of a woman simply because she's a woman, for no other reason.
Really?
And our gender-based violence is also amongst the highest in the world. So I did a show about that, only that. There were no other themes in the show. It was only gender-based violence. And right through lockdown, femicide and gender-based violence escalated. And it wasn't just in South Africa, it was all over the world. It just went through the roof. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that work at that stage was necessary, but it couldn't have been performed. And so now at last, after 3 years, I am finally, 2.5 years, I'm finally at the point. I just performed it for 3 nights in Johannesburg a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it will now get feet and develop its wings. But it's a tough show. It's a very, very tough show for myself and my pianist, and also for the audience. It was one of the weirdest reactions I've ever had in my life for a show, that after the show, whereas usually people would come to you and tell you you were bad or you were good or you were, but there's always chatter after a show. Mm. Even if you try and avoid the subject to tell somebody that they were bad, or there's chat after a show. For the first time in my life, nobody spoke to me after the show.
Really?
Mm. For the very first time in my life, nobody spoke to me after the show. I'm getting off the topics and the questions that you're asking. I'm meandering my usual way.
No, but I'm fascinated by this now, because I think what you're doing is, and this is what I love so much about the fact that artists have this ability to do this, to voice these things from the stage, that it's in that environment and it makes people think.
In the research for the show, the thing that, all those numbers of people and how they are killed and all of that was really, it was traumatic. It was completely and utterly traumatic to live through all of that in the research. But the thing that really upset me the most was the fact that experts across the world agree that we cannot stop femicide. Mm. It is not possible to stop it. We can reduce it, but we can't stop it. And the only way to reduce femicide is to reduce gender-based violence. And the only way to reduce gender-based violence is to talk about it. That is the only way, is to put it out in the open. Because I'm sure you know that most battered or abused women keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
They don't speak about it.
Mm.
And therefore, it's always under the blanket. It's always hidden. And the more it gets into the open, the more can be done about it. So that was really, for me, upsetting. And that's why I am speaking about it now. That is my job as a cabaret artist, is to speak about that right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen your show, but I can just imagine that this is the thing, this is the power of art, isn't it? To be able to do this. And I think this is what people don't realize, is that art has such a, in so many aspects, it's not just healing, but it's always also in this sense raising social topics that people have to hear.
Awareness.
Yeah, no, definitely. So tell me about this show that you're doing. So are you going, because I heard you're going to the Cool Calmers as well. Are you doing the show there?
Yes. As I said, the festivals are starting again now. So I was invited to go and perform at the festival in Hermanus, which is called the Kalfiefees, which is the whale calves.
Okay.
That's what it's called after, the small whales. So when they asked me to come down, I said to them, please don't buy me an air ticket. I'll drive down and I'll put in shows for me as I'm going down. So it's a whole 2-week road trip of traveling and through the small towns in the Free State and performing in different places. But I am not doing the show about gender-based violence everywhere, because it's just too much, if that makes any sense to you. I'd much rather now get back into the swing of performing and people coming back into the theater and making it more enjoyable than shocking or upsetting. So as I travel down, I am doing a show which we to sort of call it on a lighter note. So I'm basically just telling stories without a theme and singing songs as we travel down. Then when we get down to Cape Town, I'm doing 2 nights of the gender-based violence show in a venue in Durbanville called Devour. And then I'm going to the Cool Calmers in Paternoster. But in the Cool Calmers, Jan asked me to perform for 2 nights. And I said to him, I think it's too much to do 2 nights of the show's called Femme is Fatale. In that small little town, I just think it's too much. So I'm only doing 1 night of Femme is Fatale, and then the other night I'm doing a lighter show. And then start doing Hermanus for only one performance. And then on our way back, we're stopping in little towns again. And we're back in Johannesburg on the 11th of August. And on the 14th, I'm coming to Europe.
Oh, okay. Where are you coming
to? My city, Berlin.
Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
just going to. Yeah, I have very, very dear friends in Berlin, and luckily they like me a lot, so they bought me a ticket.
Okay.
I was going to go and spend Christmas with them, but then because of COVID, we had to cancel my flight the day before I was supposed to fly. And so hopefully this time I can actually get onto that airplane and spend 2 weeks in Europe.
Wonderful. And will you be performing then as well?
No.
Okay.
It's very difficult for us. Yeah, I can't go and perform in Germany. It's a whole rigmarole of the different permits and things. I haven't performed in Germany since the 90s. My last performance in Germany, I think, was in either 2000 or 1999, somewhere there. But it's quite a thing to as a South African to go and perform there.
Mhm. Well, now tell me about this. If you do this tour through South Africa, do you have to organize everything to get into these small town theaters?
Petra, who
Yeah.
else is going to organize it if you don't do it yourself?
Okay. So you are your own manager as well.
Yeah. I do have an agent, but I have never expected my agent to find or create work for me. That's not an agent's job. And I think a lot of performers misunderstand that. An agent is an agent. It's a go-between between two parties. It is not their job to find the work, and it's not their job to organize your life and manage your tours or whatever. And also, we don't earn enough in South Africa to really be able to pay a manager, for a manager to make a living from it. There are a few managers, but that is much more with your popular singers, people that sing popular music. Not in my little genre, in our little corner.
But you're saying that, but there are many musicians here who do the same thing. They look after themselves. They find their own jobs. And we were also talking about this, that this is also a side of the job that people don't realize, but you have to have this business sense and you have to have all that. And it's the email writing. It's not just about your art and what you're doing.
Must be able to work a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You have to be able to work a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is amazing. Your energy, I'm sure you'll, whatever you do, you just make a success of. How's the baking going?
Not quite, not everything. No, not everything. But have you any idea how this energy irritates makeup artists?
Really?
Because I can't sit still. I cannot sit still. It's really it's a battle for me in a makeup chair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Elzabé, this is amazing. I love it. But now tell me, what are your wishes for the future?
Petra, when through your life, as you do interviews, as we are doing also today, there are standard questions that you will always be asked. Mm. And one of the standard questions is exactly what you ask now. Mm. And that goes hand in hand with the question of what is your ultimate role? What is the ultimate thing that you want to do? And I really never had an ultimate. All I wanted to do was perform. That's it. I just needed a stage. It didn't matter. I didn't even need a stage. It could also be a camera, but I just wanted to perform. But then now I can't remember if it's 1999 or whether it was 2000. I played the conferencier in Cabaret in Germany, in German. And I realized that was the ultimate role.
Really?
That was it. Mm. That was the ultimate role for me. There is no other role that I can think of that I desperately need to play. I've done the part. That for me was the part.
Wow.
So I don't have great ambitions of still doing this and still doing that. I just want to work. That's all. I don't care what kind of work it is. I don't care if it's in the camera, if it's on stage, if it's behind the camera, if it's in front of a microphone. I just want to work. And there is no ultimate role for me anymore. I've done my ultimate. I've done it. I just want to perform. That's all.
But doesn't it put you in the best position, really? Because there's no pressure anymore on you to have to fulfill this dream. You've already lived it, and now you just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean there's no pressure.
Oh, okay.
The pressure is still there. The pressure is still there because you have to be better than your previous show, even though.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the pressure is still there, but that driven ambition as a youngster, I don't have that anymore. I'm very happy with just performing. That's it.
Yeah. Mm.
Give me a microphone and I'm in a happy space.
Oh, really?
My, right, you can't see it, but right behind me, let me see. There is my grand piano. So I still have my piano, even though I can't play it. It is here. Yeah. So I can rehearse here. And I had a rehearsal this morning before you came in. And my pianist, Tony Bentel, always says, this is his safe place.
Really?
Here where him and I are around the piano and just doing. And that's my ambition. Just
really?
Doing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Just want to do.
Yeah. But tell me now, but the singing, I just want to ask you now about the singing, the when you do this cabaret show, so do you write your own music as well, or the songs as well?
I definitely don't write music. And I did, when I was much younger, in my 20s, I did attempt to write lyrics as well, but it's really not my forte. So okay. I rather leave that to the people who can. But through the years, also my shows have developed in a way that, yes, some shows I do only original music, but mostly my shows is I would take a cover version and maybe twist the meaning, not change the words. I just, whatever is coming before it or after it just gives a different feeling to the song than what you expected or what you have felt all the years that you've heard that song, and just give a different spin to it. And that's mainly the music in my shows for the last really original show that I did was about 15 years ago, where all the music and the lyrics were also specially written. And since then, most of them were cover versions where I just play with it to give it a different meaning.
But this is what I actually find. Sometimes you hear a song so many times, and the moment somebody else does the cover of it, you actually understand the meaning of the song because of the way it has been interpreted then. And this is sometimes, some of these old songs are now being done by young artists, and then you totally see a different meaning in it.
Yeah, and that's very much what is happening to me as well. I never really attempted to sing the jazz greats, the great jazz standards. I was always too scared of them, simply because of the fact that I'm not a musician. I do not understand music like musicians do. But now, as I'm getting older, I'm singing more and more of them, and I actually don't care that I'm not singing it correctly or I'm not singing it the way that you would think a jazz performer should sing. I'm singing it the way I hear it, and it's the most incredible feeling now. It's this morning, Tony and I worked on "God Bless the Child." I mean, in my life, I would never have thought I'm going to sing that song.
Really? Mm.
But yes, it works. It's and in this my previous show now, or the show that I'm working on now, Femme is Fatale, about femicide. Only jazz standards, almost only jazz standards. The songs that I never in my life thought I'm going to sing. My Funny Valentine. I mean, how do you?
Yeah.
Something that you've heard so often. How do you give it a different meaning? But we did. We gave it.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, I love that. Now, but I want to ask you now, I always ask everybody this question. If you want to do a shout out for your favorite coffee shop or restaurant, but I want to ask you now to do a shout out for your cookies. Do you what do you?
Yes, well,
yeah.
What do? We do a traditional buttermilk rusk, which that is so South African that you can't get more South African than that. Except it's not that traditional because we do it with half the amount of sugar that it would usually be done. Hold on, Aggie, bring bietjie van ons koekies asseblief. Bring net pakkies van die beskuit en die koekies.
Yeah,
So
I want to see the bags.
Huh?
I want to see the bags where you put it in.
Yes, Agnes is going to bring so that you can see. So we do the rusks, and then we do shortbread. Well, Agnes does the shortbread. We do a straightforward butter shortbread, and then a lavender shortbread, and the lavender comes here from the garden. Mm-hmm. And a rose shortbread bread. We do ginger snaps, biscotti, and I've just started doing oat crunchies as well, and fudge. That's a completely new one for me, doing fudge, but I'm doing it in my way because I cannot stand that feeling when you bite in fudge and it goes through your teeth.
Yeah.
So I stop boiling it before it reaches that stage. So it's a little bit softer and it doesn't go between your teeth.
But do you? But how do you sell it? So does private people, do they come to buy it, or is it?
We don't have any. We're not selling through any shops. We hope to get something like that, because that will then means that Agnes's job is completely secure, because Agnes's job is the whole time in we never know. Are we going to be able to make it this month with the
Agnes?
Come, let's see your picture. There she is.
Oh, hi! And you're the baker. Oh, this is amazing.
There's a chocolate brownie.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. There's a chocolate brownie. These are the oat crunchies.
Oh, wow.
Here is, let me get this.
Yeah.
Get it to see it there. So it's called A to Z. So Agnes to Zietsman, because most people call me Ziets.
Okay. That's a brilliant name. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is our normal shortbread, and here is and then this is our rusks.
Wow.
It's got everything in except the kitchen sink.
Oh, really? Okay.
Everything else is in there. And I have 4 of these rusks every morning of my life as my breakfast with my cup of coffee. And then I'm fine until lunchtime. Thank you, Anne.
But this is amazing of the rusks in South Africa. It's like a meal. It's like a breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So we mostly sell from the house. People that know that will send You know that WhatsApp has got a business WhatsApp now.
Oh, okay.
So we've got all our cookies listed on there, so people can also send me orders through that, and I'll either go and deliver, or they can come and pick up, or I have sent by post as well. But with the shortbread, that's a little bit difficult because it's very fragile. So yeah, that's how we are working on it, and hope to get one of the big retailers maybe stock our cookies.
Yeah.
Hopefully, because then it's fine.
Let's
Thank
get that
you.
wish out there.
Thank you.
Listen, many people who've made.
But in South Africa, it's that, ne?
Oh,
it's not
right.
that in South Africa, it's that.
But many people who have done made wishes on my interviews, their wishes have come true. So keep me posted on this one.
Petra, I'm keeping you responsible for this now.
Yeah. Let's do it. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, but this is so lovely to talk to you, Elzabé, and thank you so much for sharing all this. You've got my number. When you come to Vienna, let me know.
I will.
I want you to come to Vienna to do a performance, to do a show.
Well, let's see. Let's see what happens, As you said, let's put it out there.
We put it out there. Okay. Elzabé, see you soon.
Okay. Cheers, Peter.
Bye.
Bye-bye.